All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So just a couple quick introductions on who we are. So I'm Shayna O'Connor. I've been in the marketing and sales industry for over 13 years, and I've been the director of sales and marketing at StringCan Interactive, a digital marketing agency in Scottsdale for the past 3 years. And Jay?
Hi everyone. I'm Jay Feitlinger. I'm the founder and CEO of StringCan. I guess serial entrepreneur. I've owned numerous companies, and I'm really quite passionate about helping small to medium-sized businesses best understand how to leverage marketing. And I'll be joining Shayna today on walking you all through our recommendations around how to get the best ROI around marketing efforts.
And before we get started, so please feel free to ask questions in the chat window, and we'll definitely leave some time at the end to answer them. But yes, as Jay mentioned, today we're talking about really the marketing tactics that you should be investing in now, and to make sure that you are generating the most ROI. And I guess before we jump into that, we first want to cover a few basics. So Jay will walk you through that. And I'll email this to you at the end as well, just so you guys can have a copy of this. You'll see my information.
So I guess with that, as Shayna mentioned, I did want to spend maybe a few minutes on a few slides, just kind of giving us some, foundational work here before we get into the recommendations we have around how you can really better leverage marketing to grow your businesses. And so one of the items that I've noticed that causes a fair amount of confusion with some of our clients that we talk to is around marketing versus sales. And so I just want to make sure that we're all clear on that. So you get the recommendations we have today, that we're focusing on marketing and not sales. And so essentially, high level, marketing's job or the purpose of it is to really help attract the ideal customers or clients that you're searching for, to then drive up or send possible leads to yourself and or your sales team that you guys can talk to about possibly becoming, again, a client or a customer. And so with that, again, ROI, it's a pretty standard formula to measure. But again, we just wanted, just for your benefit, to be thinking about it this way, because what we often find is that sometimes our clients would look at this, they might not looking at it from a holistic perspective. And they're just counting, okay, we've closed X number of new customers or clients in the last year. We're attributing some of that hopefully to marketing. We just don't really know. And so the premise behind this presentation is really to help you start thinking about, how do you measure every activity that you do to really understand what's working and what's not. And so essentially the formula is really quite simple. Essentially what you would do is you would look at first how much revenue you gained from those efforts. Then you would deduct that from the actual investment you made, and then you would divide that by the investment you made to get you the ROI percentage. I walk you through here in a second about, looking at some benchmark numbers for you to think about. I really wanted to kind of start with this. I also do want to point out that you can look at it from a perspective of purely the investment you make on marketing, with maybe paying, media companies for the placement of advertisements and whatnot, and or you actually can include labor cost. So for example, let's say you do have a part-time marketing person or full-time marketing person on staff, you could go ahead and apply some of their cost to those numbers. We recommend to keep it purely clean and focus more on the investment you make on paying for the marketing, not including labor costs, to avoid any kind of misunderstandings. And that's really kind of the way we'd recommend you consider that. And so with that, we'll look at the next slide here. And so basically here is kind of, I guess, setting kind of expectations around ROI. So this slide and the next one I'm going to talk about here just kind of gives you some benchmark numbers. Now, you're going to hear us probably mention a few times, it all depends on your situation. So just keep in mind that your numbers or results may be different than what you're seeing here. But essentially, if you look at this chart here that came out from a Nielsen report about 4 years ago, it's showing that basically, if done the right way, email technically has about a 6.5 to 7 time return. SEO, which basically is the organic results you get from looking at Google For example, driving traffic to your site, direct mail for certain businesses, online ads with Google Ads, Facebook ads, etc. And so you kind of could see that here are some of the expectations that you could have around what kind of results you would get. Again, depending upon your business, obviously this may be different. So some clients of ours have a one-time purchase. It could be everything from a small product or buying a home. Or some of our clients have a recurring based model where they might sign up for a membership plan, like a fitness studio, or maybe it's a recurring purchase like ordering food, for example. And so obviously, again, you want to take that into perspective regarding the total value that you're generating from those new customers. But essentially here is that if you focus on, let's say, an email, if your database is done the right way, and you're doing the proper best practice for email, you should see a 6 to 7 times return on the effort there, especially because email has a very low cost, similar to SEO. And so where you'll see at the end there is things like LinkedIn ads. LinkedIn ads, because it's a pretty expensive platform, often has a negative ROI from this perspective. That being said, your business might be a B2B focused organization and your ideal client is very active on LinkedIn. And in your situation, you might see LinkedIn being a higher performer than this chart shows. So again, just keep in mind, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, the intention of this slide is just to give you a sense of what some industry benchmarks might look like across these various different marketing tactics. Then on this next slide, here now you could see where it's showing you what an average cost per lead could look like based upon your industry or vertical. So again, here, when you're looking at that, again, it's gonna be on a case-by-case basis, but if you were more of a technical, computer service-based organization, you might see your average cost per lead being significantly higher than, let's say, for example, if you were in a travel, like a tourism-based business. And so again, here, we wanted to show you this data because we wanted you to think about it from that perspective. As we get later on into mapping out your marketing funnel, you might want to look at it from a perspective of how many leads do I need to get to convert those leads into customers or clients. And based upon these numbers, you actually can allocate how much marketing you should plan on investing. So for example, if you were a computer organization, and let's say, for example, you needed 5 leads per month, if you were spending around $1,000, roughly $208 a cost per lead times 5, that essentially gets you that kind of a high level idea of what you should plan on investing to acquire the kind of leads you're looking for. And again, when it comes to marketing, every month, and we'll talk about that in a little bit here, every month over month, you should see improved performance in how you're optimizing your campaigns. But again, as a benchmark perspective, wanted to give you this sense so you can think about how much should I budget, which is honestly a very common question we get from clients regarding how much should I spend, $500 a month or $500,000 a month? And our answer often is how many leads do we need to get based upon your current conversion flow that ties into that kind of investment.
All right, and with that, I don't know if you've noticed, but we actually have a road trip car theme throughout our presentation, because just like when you take a road trip, you want to make sure you plan the key places you'll go to have the best trip. So we're going to walk through 6 critical steps to really choosing the right marketing tactics for your business, really to generate ROI. So I'm going to go through each step, and then Jay is actually going to then jump in on some actionable ways you can go about accomplishing each step. And then we'll also link to some free resources to help you guys along the way. So with that, step 1, so understand your focus. So a lot of our clients actually says that their business is good for everyone, but you simply can't target everyone. So we help our clients really avoid wasting a lot of time and money by really having focus. You want to make sure you understand who your ideal 1 to 2 customers are. And really understand, why are they coming to your business? What makes you different? And you want to make sure that, your marketing is actually spent on trying to find these customers. This will help shape your marketing efforts, the messaging on your website, and everything that you do. So Jay will walk through a couple of tips to help you really narrow your focus.
So as Shana mentioned, again here, this whole intention here is to give you all direction. I know personally, I've owned many businesses, and I often struggled with this. I just found myself, waking up every day and figuring out what fire to put out. And often I found that things like marketing took a back seat, I guess tied into the whole, road theme here. And so I wanted just to share with you a couple insights that I personally have gained that works really well for me and our company, as well as supporting our clients on, again, giving them focus. So as Shana mentioned, it's just very unlikely that everyone out there, is your ideal customer. Sure, everyone could possibly buy from you, but that probably isn't a strategic way to do your marketing, as well as there is not an unlimited amount of time and budget. So the first question I would really challenge you with, if you have your company in place for many years now, is to look back and think about, why did you start this company? I'm often actually reminding myself about that, where I will often be thinking about, I launched this current business 10 years ago, and I every year want to reflect on the reason why I started the company to help me kind of really ground myself and think about the purpose. And then I want to kind of think about, like, who really benefits from my product or my service. Again, there are people out there, like outliers, that may want to buy my product or service, but they often might not be the ideal customers. And typically I find that for the customer service staff and or monitoring online reviews, the people that would least benefit immediately from the product or service are the ones that can cause you the most amount of headache on servicing them. And then, which ties into kind of the last two bullets there, is, again, based upon your business's situation, you might have a customer service team or sales team or account team in place. So our advice then would be is have internal conversations. You might be surprised that everyone has often a very different opinion here. And it's really key that the people that you are supporting are ones that your company and the right people on your team love working with. Because again, it just often feels good having kind of that purpose-driven mindset. But then on the flip side of that, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, there definitely are some customers that you probably least enjoy working with. These are the ones that are constantly complaining, constantly challenging the pricing, or writing bad reviews about you, just causing you so much unnecessary stress, time, and money. And so again, here we call those negative personas. And so the idea behind that would be, is similar like on a road trip. There's probably that friend that you have that you wouldn't probably enjoy driving more than a half an hour with. It might be super annoying on that ride. That's what we're trying to recommend to you here, is try to avoid investing energy on the kind of customers or clients that you and your team wouldn't most enjoy working with.
And the second would be to actually set goals. So in my experience, we've actually, it's crazy to think a lot of businesses really don't have a clear picture about what they want to accomplish. So setting goals is super important. And oftentimes we recommend really breaking it down into, what do you want to accomplish in the next 30, 60, 90 days to kind of help you get there. And, obviously just like a road trip, you want to be clear about the destinations in mind and really help map out how you'll get there. So Jay will walk you through some ideas on how to set good goals that you can actually attain.
So obviously Shane already addressed kind of the first one. And again, we often with our clients, one of our first meetings, we'll be talking heavily around goals. And depending upon who's in the room during those kind of kickoff meetings, we might hear 15 to 20 different goals. And often the goals are just really unclear and often not realistic. And so if you ever heard about the acronym SMART, basically it's all about measurable, actionable, they're realistic. These are very important things to think about. So if you haven't heard of the SMART reference to goals, I definitely recommend you Google that and learn about it, because it's probably been one of the biggest game changers that I've seen in my company and for our clients. And so every single goal that you kind of put out there should be very focused, attainable, realistic, measurable, etc. And then, like I mentioned, when I mentioned the cost per lead on a few slides back, one effective way, if you kind of are feeling a little lost about, I don't know where to start with this, I don't know what goals to put in place, I just know I want, more marketing leads or to see results from our marketing efforts. What is a really healthy way to go around this is working backwards. And so my concept there would be is let's say, for example, you're at a certain revenue amount today, and for whatever reason you want to hit, let's say, 2 times that. So what you'd want to do is look back at the history of your business and figure out what did it take you to go from the prior numbers to the where you are at today, and give your sense of a benchmark of what you can work off of. And then based upon where you're at today versus where you want to go, you can work backwards off of, how many leads you need to get to convert how many new customers to generate X number of dollars to help you reach your financial goals. But again, here, it's not always about maybe the revenue. It might be about winning an award. It might be around, improving your sales process. It might be around making your company more efficient. So, marketing impacts a lot more than just driving awareness and leads to your business. It often can impact the engagement you have with current customers and how you nurture those relationships. Because again, what we often see is companies invest so much time and money on acquiring new customers, but then once they're a customer, you kind of, step back and kind of just let it ride. And if we want to, I guess, make a recommendation to you, is that's probably where you want to invest even more time. And that still ties into marketing. It could be as simple as doing email marketing. It could be quarterly, meetings with your customers or clients. It could be doing social media work. So you want to think about marketing, not just about acquisition, but also about conversion, retention, etc.
The third would be looking for obstacles and opportunities. So on your road trip, you clearly want to avoid as many potholes as possible. And, a lot of times our clients or businesses will come to us and wanting to generate leads immediately. But if you're investing in driving traffic to your site and they can't convert, then you're clearly wasting money. So, that's why we actually take the time at our agency to invest in, doing an audit of our clients' website and marketing efforts to look for any potholes or, obstacles or new opportunities before we actually recommend jumping into any kind of marketing tactic. So you really want to make sure that you're doing that as well. So what potholes, are your customers facing when they come to your website? And Jay will walk you through a couple free resources that can really help you do this.
I guess before I jump into that, I think, again, tying this whole thing back to the ROI side on the return on the investment is, we have seen examples of clients where they were spending, a small fortune on marketing with Google ads and Facebook ads and whatnot. And they were like, oh, this is not working. My marketing person is not good, or my agency I hired is not good. And as Shana kind of pointed out, if we can't impact the experience at every single touch point, marketing honestly is failing. And so on our end, obviously we're an agency, so we have, a lot more, expensive paid tools in place. But again, we wanted to really offer a lot of value here on this presentation today. And so our team kind of dug into our toolbox and looked at all the tools that we are finding huge value in that don't have a cost to you. And so, you may not have heard of many of these tools before, so I'm going to very high level explain a couple of them. If you are interested in trying out some of these tools, as Shana mentioned earlier on when we kicked off this webinar, email her and she'll send you a copy of the presentation. And these are hyperlinked, or you can just Google these tools. But first and foremost, the only way you're going to measure ROI is if you have analytics in place. And you'd be amazed at how many clients we speak to of all different types and sizes that don't even have this in place. So assuming you have a website, one of the first things, and if you only did one thing from this presentation and you didn't have this in place, I feel like we had a win, is look into Google Analytics. It's an amazing, powerful tool. It can be a little overwhelming at first, so you can just go to YouTube and whatnot and just look up, Google Analytics Basics or Google Analytics 101 or 101. Just to get the essentials. But this tool will tell you everything you need to know, how people are finding your site, what page they're going to, how they're converting, etc. And so we always recommend starting with this just to get a sense of like what's working and what's not. Then the second tool that we love that's also free from Google is they call Google Webmaster or Google Search Console. And so with this tool, Google actually will tell you errors they're finding on your website. So again, back to the ROI benchmark slide that we gave you, the SEO or the search engine optimization was the second top performing marketing tactic for you. Well, if you are not being found well on search engines, it's very likely you have some kind of obstacle on your site. And this tool will tell you if you have broken links, Google can't crawl your website, etc. And so again here, before you make any investment in marketing, our advice would be strongly that you fix these potholes or these issues first. In addition, a lot of these tools will tell you about opportunities. So for example, like HubSpot has a free website grader tool, and there are a few of these out there where it'll tell you, wow, if you did these certain things to your site, maybe improve the content or improve the page speed, you're gonna see a huge boost in organic rankings. And so these are a couple of the tools that we'd recommend that you look into. Again, as I mentioned, before you spend $1 on additional marketing, fix these items first. That way, then you're giving the ultimate or positive experience to prospective new clients or customers. So when they land on your website or whatever, landing page you're going to drive them to, that the experience is the experience that you would want them to have, similar if you invited them into your office or your home or wherever your business might be, that you want that experience to be very positive.
The fourth then would be to actually put yourself in your customer's shoes. So one thing that our team does that we highly recommend you doing as well is actually to secret shop yourself and your competitors. So this actually, going through the process, so you understand really, the process from their point of view. And also to think about, along that buying process, what tactics you should be investing in based on kind of where they're spending time. So something really important to do is really think about it from your customer's point of view and looking at those 1 to 2, key ideal customers that we talked about a little bit ago. And Jay will go through a few tactics you may want to consider.
So with this one, as Shannon just kind of mentioned, the most important part of this first and foremost is really understanding your customers, as we mentioned, back in step number 1. If you haven't heard of buyer personas, it's the marketing term that talks all about kind of fictional representation of your ideal customer. Typically, we recommend for companies that are just kind of getting a little more advanced in the marketing space to try to limit it to maybe 1 to 3, because every buyer persona you have is going to require its own marketing plan. But I would definitely start there. If you haven't heard of this before, you can Google marketing buyer personas or marketing, ideal customers. In addition, our website on stringcantinteractive.com, we do spend a lot of energy around this topic because we are quite passionate about it. There actually are a couple free resources on our site where you can download to learn how to, create your own buyer personas. But again, start with this. But as Shana mentioned, once you really understand your personas, then you want to kind of really think about what are the right marketing tactics that you should consider for your business. Similar, almost like, switching from the road trip analogy, more of the cooking analogy with like baking a cake. Any kind of, mostly in the baking space, you got to have your ingredients, set up in the right way. When it comes to marketing, where we often see a lot of our clients before they start working with us really struggle is they try to do too many things. And so here basically are some of the more popular marketing tactics that we want to recommend that you consider. And then next we'll talk about kind of prioritization, but starting from the bottom, working our way up. So if your ideal customers have a local need, like they are looking for local companies like yours to purchase, you want to make sure that you're being found well with things like Google Maps. And so again, there, secret shopping yourself and your competitors, just go to Google Maps and type in a keyword that your business relates to and see how you and or your competitors are showing up. And that will obviously be one area that you want to make sure that you're performing really well on. Then kind of going from there is kind of on the right side is looking at things like paid search. So I mentioned this briefly before. Paid search can be things like Google ads, Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, if it makes sense for your business. The beauty of this versus SEO is you don't have to wait till Google or a various search engine crawls your site and gives you a ranking. You actually can bid on certain keywords that your audience is searching on to make sure that you're being possibly found. And so again, it's a very effective tactic, but only if done the right way based upon your audience. Another really popular one that you probably often hear about is social media. You're probably, I'm sure, already on there. But again, here, you want to kind of think about producing the content that's meaningful to your ideal customer. And so again, secret shopping, your competitors and even your own business, and understanding, what is important to your customers, and also what social media platforms they're even on, that'll give you some really good direction and focus. And so again, you can kind of work your way up this kind of road here to kind of get a sense of, like, these are some various different tactics that you can kind of add into the mix of your business to consider. But always our recommendation would be is tie it back into what are the tactics or platforms that your ideal customers are most actively on, and then making sure you're being found where they're going.
Awesome. Step 5 then would be to implement just 1 to 2 tactics to start. So, again, tying back to the road trip, it's okay to take a pit stop, but you want to make the best use of your time, and you can't go every place or every destination, and you can't implement every marketing tactic. So, and a lot of times our clients, they don't have unlimited amount of budget. So we want to make sure to really prioritize, what are the 1 to 2 things that you can really start with. Again, where those 1 to 2 ideal personas are, that you can really start investing in to get the best results. So Jay will actually walk you through 3 ways to really go about this.
So here we alluded to this a little bit, and again, you're often probably hearing about the customer side, because again, it's an area that we have found over the years is the only way to get really good ROI. So you aren't just like, hoping and praying that it's going to work. And so the first and foremost approach that we have found to really help us prioritize it, again, backing up on the last slide, when we gave you all those marketing tactics, on top of those is probably another 20 to 30 that you could consider, that obviously would be unique based upon your industry or your type of business. But I think when you're struggling around trying to figure out, okay, we now have 9 different tactics that we think would make sense for our company, where do we start? And so we have found there's no better way to figure this out than just asking your customers. And so often what we'll do is, for some of our clients that have much larger budgets, we might come up with 15 to 18 different approaches. And so we'll go ahead and interview their, best customers, or maybe we'll do an online survey, or maybe we'll go online and engage with them in discussion groups and whatnot. And so our advice there would be on that first bullet is just take the time to go back to your customers and really ask them what their thoughts are. If there's a direction that you're headed, like maybe you're thinking about improving your website, or redoing your logo, or trying this new blog content idea, you could run it by them like, hey, we're thinking about doing this or this. Which of these would you prefer? Because what we have found is if you just say to a customer, hey, we're thinking about doing more marketing, what do you recommend? And they might be like overwhelmed by that way too broad of a question. So again, a tip there would be is try to keep it as narrow as possible, similar to our first slide with you all about the focus. You want to kind of give them direction so you get the outcome that you're looking for to give you the focus that you need around picking the 1 to 2 ideas. Next, what we do recommend is looking at your competitors. And so again, here, you could look at their websites, you could sign up, for their newsletters. We're not trying to recommend doing anything unethical around this, but a lot of this is, public knowledge. And, again, what we'd recommend is obviously first and foremost, focusing on what makes you special. We never want to promote you, bashing or talking poorly about your competitors, but you being aware of what they're doing and where they're investing, it might help you figure out where to zag when they're zigging. So that might be kind of an interesting approach for you to kind of consider. And then last but not least, this is the one that I personally get most excited about, is talking to other industry peers. I would say with most of our clients that we talk to, we always could find some kind of group available to them or us just to have some very non-competitive conversations. So for example, our agency, we're part of this larger 250 plus agency network where I meet with other business owners of agencies every 6 months. And we talk through all the trials and tribulations, obstacles, opportunities and whatnot around our industry. Especially during COVID, this has been extremely beneficial. And so there, I might come to one of those groups and saying, hey, our team is thinking about doing more advertising on LinkedIn. What kind of results have you all seen? What's worked, what has not worked? And I will get amazing gems from them to help me avoid wasting a ton of time and money. Because again, someone, yourself or someone on your team, or maybe a person you hired, might present an idea to you that just sounds awesome. But if someone else tried it and didn't have great success, it might be great to learn from that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it, but it might be kind of good to know how to drive down that road in a much more effective way to avoid you wasting time and money.
Awesome. And the final one, so the most important, is actually measuring, tracking, optimizing, and adjusting. So like on a road trip, if you run out of gas, you obviously want to make sure that, that doesn't happen again. Or if you go on a great trip, you want to seek the advice of your friends or family about what they liked most about it and what they liked least. So, you really need to make sure you can track and measure the 1 to 2 marketing tactics that you picked. So again, you understand what's working and what's not, and how you can focus on the tactics that are generating results, and really looking at, what are the sales, where are they coming from? And that way you can continue to do more of those tactics. Then as you go, invest into more tactics that are working. Jay will go through a few free resources that can really help you learn how to actually track your ROI.
So again, similar to the other slide where we had the links to various different tools, we organized this in a very similar fashion. So again here, I'm not sure if you have a CRM, which is a customer relationship management software tool in place. This is one of the areas that often we'll see even very large companies not really leveraging properly. The challenge is that if you work with more than a handful of customers or clients, it's just really hard year after year to remember all the details about those various different touch points. There are a fair number of CRMs out there that you can look into. Again, just to staying on this kind of course, we really wanted to provide a lot of free or very inexpensive tools that for you to consider. And this is one of the tools that we would recommend you look into. So if you don't have a CRM in place today, HubSpot has a great free one out there that you could look into. The idea behind that would be is that it's nearly impossible for you to measure how all this is going without having some kind of CRM in place. Because what you might find is that for one of your buyer personas, it takes you 5 to 7 touch points to get them to be interested in talking with you. Another persona might be 1 or 2. Another might be 10 to 15. Every type of customer profile out there might engage with you differently. And so the idea behind that would be is you want to kind of measure every single touch point. So how they found you, when they landed on your website, what were they doing on your site? Were they looking at certain pages? And then how many visits it took them to fill out maybe a form or maybe subscribe to your newsletter? Once they did that, when they're a marketing qualified lead, what does it take from them going from a marketing qualified lead to a sales qualified lead? Each of those metrics will give you amazing insight to know how to plan out your marketing efforts. I already mentioned to you Google Analytics. I'm not going to go into that in more detail, but that obviously would be a great tool for you guys to use for measuring. A third tool that we love as far as like monitoring and tracking what's going on with your company, your brand, your competitors, your industry, etc., is Google Alerts. Again, one of my favorite free tools out there. If you haven't heard of it, basically Google Alerts is a free tool where you can go on to it and add in certain keywords. It could be your company name. It could be one of your executive names or your own name. It could be a competitor's name or maybe about your industry. Google, based upon your preference, will send you updated information as it becomes available for your business. So again, here, maybe you want to learn about when your competitor wins an award or your competitor wins a new client, or maybe there's a big change in your industry or some kind of government new regulation. These will allow you to pivot and adjust your marketing to be even more relevant in a timely manner. A second to last one, the Bitly side. So Bitly is a URL shortener. And again, if you haven't heard of that tool, it allows you to take a very long URL and to leverage that in things like a direct mail campaign or a billboard or even online marketing. And that'll allow you to then redirect a shortened URL, like your domain.com/promotion or whatever you want to call it, to be redirected immediately to a longer URL. And that tool will give you insights regarding exactly how many people click on those various different links. And then last but not least, one tool that I really am also fond of is MailChimp. So there are a gazillion different email marketing solutions out there. Again, because on that prior slide, we talked about how effective email can be done if done the right way. And so again, one of our favorite tools out there is MailChimp. They do a really good job by giving you data. It's a very cost-effective, free in certain situations. Until you grow your database, which is a positive thing. It's a kind of a good problem to have. But again, here, it'll allow you to build different lists. So you can have different email marketing campaigns based upon your customer profile. You know, some of your customers might be more interested in certain products, services, and others might be interested in others. And so you obviously can tailor your marketing and really just a lot of testing to see, you know, what messaging and what frequency really is generating you those best results. So again, so here are just, again, a couple different handful of tools that I'm not going to go into all of them because each one probably be another 5 or 10 minute conversation. But, you know, look into these tools and you'll just find different ways to help you measure the results of the various different marketing tactic that you're going to try implementing.
And here's just a little bit about us and our team. You can obviously click on this link to learn a little bit more or visit our website. But, you know, helping our clients kind of cut through the noise is definitely an area that we specialize in. So, and with that, if you want a copy of this presentation or have any questions for us, feel free to email me and I'll send this to you so you can see the list of free tools. And again, feel free to reach out with any questions. We'd be happy to answer them. And does anyone have, it looks like in the chat, I didn't see anybody add questions, but maybe we'll take a second to see if there's anything we can answer for you right now. Or anything to add on that, Jay?
As we did a great job so far, no questions.
No one has any marketing questions. All right, well, perfect. Again, if you guys think of anything, you have my email here. Oh, yes, you're welcome, Jeff. If you guys have any follow-up comments or feedback, please feel free. It's Shana@stringcantinteractive.com. And thanks everyone for taking some time out of your day or for watching the recording. Yeah, enjoy the rest of your week.